Welcome. I'm Jim Myers, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Content for MX. As many of you know, MX has been in business over 30 years, helping B2B companies and manufacturers in particular become more successful and grow their business. So today we're here to talk about not only the B2B business, manufacturing business, but also to talk about how content marketing can play an important role in that. And that's because MX is not only one of the largest B2B agencies in the country, but it's probably the only B2B agency in the country that has a large content marketing practice as well. So with that, let's talk a little bit about those different opportunities. And let me start by having our guests here today introduce themselves and talk a little bit about themselves.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Otto Hector, Managing Director here at the MX Group, where I have the privilege of working across a number of manufacturing clients at varying degrees of maturity as marketers. And so I'm really excited to share some thoughts and observations today, as well as a few calls to action, because the time seems like now for many to get this right.
Cindy Miller, VP of Content at MX. I lead a team of creators working on everything from social posts to white papers to print magazines, all really intending to help B2B marketers get their message out.
Patrick Brennan, Senior Strategist at MX. And in my time here, I have taken the lead on audience insights and brand strategy for several of our manufacturing clients. Thanks,
everybody, for those intros. So let's get started. You know, Patrick, one of the areas that we've seen a lot of interest in by manufacturers is in thought leadership. Clearly, thought leadership is a big advantage to a business and to a brand. And so let's talk a little bit about that and what you've seen in that area.
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that we've seen across all B2B categories is that the sales cycle is getting longer and longer. It's much more complex. There are more people involved in it. And that's magnified here in manufacturing. The products that we're marketing, they are big, they're complex, they're expensive, they can be make or break for a company. So they need to feel like the people that they're hearing from are just as invested in this as they are. So they need to feel like they have a relationship with those brands. But the fact is that 70% of the sales cycle happens before they reach out to a brand, before they make that initial contact. So we need to build that relationship in that time. And if we can build some trust in our expertise and our leadership in the category, that's going to help us in that 70% period. And once they're in that last 30%, then we're able to win that part.
Great.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Patrick, because I get it fully, but then there's another opposing force of all this, which is the beauty of ROI, right? Because we're talking about long lead cycles and having an impact with an audience before the metric shows up, typically in this period, right? And so it's really important that relationships are built internally at the marketers org, CMO, CFO kind of relationships, so that we can understand the balance of short-term versus long-term. Because we kind of need to drip on this audience, to your point, well ahead of them being in the mode to buy. Otherwise, you're just asking for content or really any marketing to do too much. Just the world's evolved and we've got to get there as well. And part of the manufacturing world has been a little bit slow to adopt, if I'm being pretty frank.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there have been questions about ROI, right? From everybody, from every sector. I think manufacturing is no different. But where I do think there is a case to be made is this idea that, you can hit people across the whole buying cycle with content. So there's a report from Demand Gen report that says 70% of B2B buyers engage with multiple pieces of content as they make their decisions. So that's really points to the need for more of an omnichannel approach where you can, maybe somebody wants to take in a podcast while they walk the dog, or they want to kick back and watch a long form video, or maybe they're just scrolling and stop and engage with the brand on social. Anyway, the point is that you're trying to really reach that customer with the information they want, where they want, and when they want it. And then it appears really authentic and that connection is made. But I think too, this is a benefit for the marketer because it's efficiency play, right? You can, by creating that one piece of core content, you can slice and dice that all across. You can have one big long form video that you turn into a social post that maybe is a a blog article or whatever that looks like, but you're hitting them at multiple points along that way as they make the decision.
Yeah, good points. It's really about having a cogent strategy
Yes.
that everything hangs from. Because like we need to be reactive in the marketplace. We understand that. But to your point of, slicing and dicing or atomization of content, then it becomes efficient in its creation. You can get metrics through other channels, and then knowing that it might not result in a sale downstream, you can measure things like engagement, shares, and things like that help those buying committees sort of have brands become more resonant with them in the organic way that is sort of the only way to operate these days. Because if you're not authentic, you're toast, because the world will sniff it out and then you're dead to me.
Yeah, and too often as you talk about ROI, we've seen companies and brands who create one piece of content and it just lives in one space. Yeah. And when we look at content marketing, we're looking at planning in advance that content is going to be produced in multiple formats. It is going to go through multiple channels to their customers and their audiences, and that drives the ROI factor up. So they've made an investment in content, and now they're getting more out of it. And now let's talk about the next thing. There's a lot of changes going on, a lot of macro changes happening in the world and in manufacturing in particular. You're talking about sustainability, innovation, supply chain problems. Let's talk a little bit about those, and maybe Patrick, you can get us started.
Yeah, there's a growing need to focus on social responsibility. I think 64% of B2B buyers now are either Gen Z or millennial. And those generations, they really expect brands to have a stance on something and take a stand for those things. So for something like sustainability, it's really vital for brands to have a point of view and really have something authentic that they are saying about it. We've all seen examples of greenwashing in the industry, and it sets off your lie detector immediately. So everyone knows those are coming. You have to get out there and have a strong point of view to win with these buyers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good point. And, you touched on it, Patrick, with the importance of being authentic there, and like back to ROI for a second, like these are long-term commitments that brands need to make. So it actually becomes a matter of like the brand's positioning at the end of the day, because you're making promises to whatever degree is right for you in sustainability or whatever other area. Those promises aren't made for this year or the next couple of years. Those are commitments that will stand for the life of the company. And so you need to set the course, make sure you can deliver across business cycles, personnel cycles, because consumers, or customers in this case, as we talk about B2B, they don't forget. And back to buying committees, like they talk and they'll actually amplify. And the public is happy to call us out on BS if there's BS. And then it's out of our control and you can't get Pandora back in the box.
Got to keep Pandora in. Yeah. I think that, to go back to what you were saying, Patrick, earlier, I think you have to have a point of view. You can't just say, oh, we're sustainable. You have to have a very distinct point of view and you have to prove it. And I think that's where content can really play a role, though, especially with all this AI generated stuff that's coming out. Everything sounds the same. Everybody says they're responsible. Everybody says they're sustainable. But to your point, there's a lot of greenwashing. So I think if you can create high quality content, probably written by journalists that can really drive home that point with authentic and real and fact-based information, the better off you're going to be. And I think then you can make those connections. It does seem like you're speaking in an authentic way to the customer, that you're not just sort of talking about your brand, you're showing how this is going to address their specific pain points, and you're there for them, and it's a really trusted form of information versus something that somebody typed a prompt in and got a magical story.
Trust is a super operative word there,
Yeah.
and that trust is like takes a while to build and it can erode in an instant. So every step matters, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great insight. Thank you. Good point, sir. One of the core tenets of content marketing is to have an audience-first approach, to really understand and come at it from the customer's point of view, so that we can address those pain points. But that's difficult in the manufacturing space because there are so many. The process is so long, and there's so many different people who are involved in the process. There can be not only internal people, but there can be sales reps and independent reps, and all of those different audiences have to be considered, including the ultimate end users. So that makes the process more complex, and I'm sure, Patrick, you might have some thoughts and insight about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think the data shows in this category, manufacturing, that we have the hardest time understanding the audience. Manufacturers, I think we've seen that, anecdotally as well. It's manufacturing audiences are really hard to understand. A lot of manufacturers go through distributors, so that having that lack of one-on-one relationship can make that much more difficult. That said, there are a lot of ways that we can do it. It's not impossible. We can, start with the old tried and true, just talking to people, having that one-on-one interview or, panels, anything like that, really getting to know the consumer. That's going to be your best way. But the other side of it is sometimes that's not always an option. So then you have things like social listening, where you can, really go out there and find what people are saying, how they feel about certain things, themes in the category, and track that down. But then there's also the option of AI, where we can, instead of creating content with AI, we can, use it to just understand audiences and, get the sources, go in and find, the right insights that are going to help us win.
Yeah, and thinking about audiences, it goes back to those committees, right? You've got growing buying groups made up of unique individuals, but they work together as a group, and each of those individuals is on their own moment in their journey, and so we've got to find ways to resonate with them in those moments, but hang together in the whole story. And in terms of ways to, really understand that, you've got to think, sort of to break the paradigm of classic B2B of top of funnel through bottom of funnel, because it really transcends the entire funnel when you sandwich all those people together in one committee. Have you experienced that before?
Yeah, and I want to kind of bust a myth here that content marketing can only play up top. And I think there's something to that. You can use something like a social post to build brand awareness, keep it short, keep it sweet, get the brand out there, yay. But I think there's an opportunity to even go deeper at that top of the funnel with something that we call social storytelling, where we're leaning in a little more and we're pulling in the color, and we're telling a story so that people, even as they scroll through Instagram, will stop and read it and think, okay, I've registered that brand now. And then as the journey continues, you can bring in other kinds of content. It might be a how-to article on the blog. Then as it gets closer to maybe sealing the deal, you want to go in with more of a informative, journalism-driven white paper, and then you get the customer, but you still got to have some content there. So maybe then you pull in with a podcast where you've got multiple points of content, and that cadence keeps going because you need that consistent sort of drumbeat of content. I think the thing that I've seen the most is that what puts content marketing apart is that you're really putting the audience first. And then the brand kind of folds organically into that.
And you bring up a really good point on like getting to the sale. In many ways, that's almost the beginning of the journey, right? Like we've got to get to that, and then loyalty, advocacy that comes afterwards.
Absolutely.
You can't stop there. So you need to continue fueling those flames, to your point, in ways that are relevant to the customer and their end users.
Yep.
Not about the brand. It's got to be really, really natural and sort of organic, so that the brand's payoff is secondary to what the customer needs now in this period or over this moment in time.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Otto. Our final question that we'll talk about today is one that's come up quite recently with a lot of our manufacturing clients, and that is talent and the ability to attract talent to the industry that they're in. So I'm going to start today with Otto on this one and get a few thoughts from him about some of the things we've seen and heard.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, there's an interesting duality going on right now of like, it's not only the brand position and the company's position and what they mean as modern manufacturing, because manufacturing has modernized over the last few years, decades. It's also the talent's perception of it. And so both of those things need to work together to fill this talent problem, and it transcends levels within the organization. So what we've got to get better at is communicating the amazing opportunity that manufacturing represents today for all levels of the org, because it's true. Like, this isn't dirty old shops anymore. Like, this is pristine, in many regards, pristine halls of innovation, technology, efficiency, and opportunity. And so, you got folks leaving the best B schools now, and everyone wants to go work in the Bay Area at the, wonderful brands that used to be known as the Magnificent Seven. But the reality is you've got managers in manufacturing companies being as innovative, as tech-centric as you're getting in those tech companies. And then in terms of workers on the line, same thing. You're not just standing on a line making widgets all day. Like, these roles have even evolved to becoming almost like software engineers to troubleshoot when something's going on so you can get the line back up and running. So the paradigm has changed, and it's incumbent upon the industry to actually make that known, because it's not really known yet. But there's pockets of sort of awareness that are starting to bloom. Have you seen those pockets in the work that you've done?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we're in sort of a new generation of, manufacturing. It's not, my grandfather or something like that. It's a younger generation. It's, more diverse generation, more women in the, sector. And we have to, talk about what they want to hear rather than, what the stereotypes of the industry are. So they're looking for things that might be more about the purpose behind what they're doing. So what they're, they want something, they want to contribute to, the company that they work for in a big way, and, see the results of what they're doing out in the world. But they also want to, contribute to the world in a big way. So, we talked about sustainability, understanding that that's a, key thing to reach this generation. And we just need to, have a better understanding of what they want from the jobs, things like flexibility. They're not looking for a 9 to 5. They're looking for something that's, a different way of doing things. And, if we bring that to them, we can, attract the right people.
Yeah, I think 100% on that one. I think every single marketer is trying to figure out how to reach younger people, whether it's as consumers or whether they're trying to recruit them. I think the added feature here is that the manufacturing industry itself is viewed as kind of old school, kind of stodgy, maybe not the most innovative. I get it. My dad worked for a steel mill for 35 years, and I think it has changed. It has changed a lot, but I don't know that that message has gotten out. So I do think, again, that's where content marketing can come in, because you can tell those stories. You can really highlight this new workplace that's emerging and some of the really cool innovations that are happening. You could have, a woman talking about how she paved the career path for herself in the manufacturing industry. That might not have been the case maybe even like 10 years ago. You could have, somebody do a video about additive manufacturing that really shows how cutting edge some of these companies are, so that young people want to be a part of that. You don't have to work for one of those big Silicon Valley firms. You can make a difference. You can adopt really forward futuristic looking things in this industry. And I think that's the part that sometimes gets missing. And I think the other piece that I would add here is just this need to kind of humanize the brands, because sometimes they're a little cold, sometimes it feels a little sterile. So I think there's an opportunity here too to bring in those employees, have them talk and tell their stories about what it's like to work there and how cool it is. And I would just say to this goes across the board, don't be afraid to have a little fun, showcase that dynamic feel that can happen.
Yes, and one of our clients, a large global trade association, initially challenged us many years ago to use content to elevate the profession, to make workers feel better about themselves, to make them know that their job is important. They also eventually shifted, once we accomplished that, to elevating the profession in the eyes of the C-suite, got even more specific there. And that disciplined project management has become, an essential part of any business today, and we feel good about the results we had and the work we did for them. So, with that, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today and giving us your insight and some of your knowledge that you've gathered from manufacturers. We're committed at MX to manufacturing and to B2B companies, and we will be continuing to have ongoing content on the website. So check that out when you have a chance. And join the conversation. If we can help you in any way, we're always glad to be there, and we love talking about manufacturing. So thank you again.